afternoon, everyone. I know it's getting close to lunchtime and everyone's tired, so get up, get a drink, stretch a little. There's ladies here who will bring you a drink, and stay tuned because we're going to have a very interesting talk with Aaron Stevens, who's the Business Development Manager of Intelligent Energy, and we're talking about clean distribution power for the telco sector in developing countries, focusing on India. So if you're interested in India, please come have a chat, and I'd like to welcome Aaron onto stage right now. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for being with us.
No problem, it's a pleasure.
So could you tell us a little bit about Intelligent Energy and why your company was motivated to get into the fuel cell side?
Sure,
of
no
things?
problem. So Intelligent Energy are based in the UK. We're headquartered in Loughborough in the Midlands in the UK. We have around 400 employees at present, so we've grown very rapidly in recent years. We actually started over 20 years ago. So we started as a university spin-out from the University of Loughborough, and we launched a subsidiary company in India. I'll talk a bit about those later on. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, that's now grown to 50 full-time employees. And we're focused on PEM technology. That's our fuel cell of choice. And we're in 3 quite different markets. We're in the consumer electronics market, which is typically circa 25 watts, sort of 1 to 25 watts of power, embedded technology for fuel cells for laptops, mobile phones, and small fuel cell consumer products. That's one market segment for us. Automotive is another market segment where we work with premium OEMs in the car market, predominantly in Europe, some in Japan as well, to integrate our much larger fuel cells into vehicles. So there's a fuel cell motorbike and a range of fuel cell car products that we've supported. The most interesting segment from my perspective is the one that I work in, and that's the distributed power, where we're currently rolling out products into the telecom sector in India.
You mentioned a little bit when we were talking about hydro. So did you want to touch about why you chose to work with hydro, or?
Yeah, sure. So as part of our outreach in India, we have a partnership with a company called Hydro, excuse me, who are based in Wales, and they have a water purification technology, which is a bit like a fuel cell in reverse, with some modifications that will produce pure water, and we would like to co-locate that technology with our fuel cell units to generate clean water as well as clean power at many of our sites in countries like India.
So let's talk a little bit about your fuel cell. We've just talked about the water in terms of its characteristics and what makes it unique.
Sure. So our PEM fuel cell is very power dense. So you can imagine in an automotive application, you want as much energy density as you can get. We're circa 35% efficiency from hydrogen fuel to electricity, which is very good. That's a very good efficiency. And PEM technology allows very rapid response to changes in load as well. So that's some of the main characteristics. We don't have to worry too much about temperature. So some types of fuel cell you have a thermal management challenge, whereas we run pretty cool.
So in terms of kilowatts produced, what are we looking at?
So in terms of the kilowatt size of units that we roll out?
Yes.
Yep, so we've got on our display today actually a 1 kilowatt air-cooled stack, which is the basis of the small distributed power equipment that we currently roll out into telecoms. But when we're looking at evaporatively cooled technology, a different way of producing a fuel cell stack, we produce in the tens of kilowatts per stack. So we've got a 30 kilowatt stack on our stand today, which is available to, very happy to show people and talk about that a bit later on.
Okay, as most people can see, I was born in India, look Indian. So I have one question that I think a lot of people might have in terms of, you're coming to our country, and as technologically advanced as it is, there are certain environmental factors such as dust.
Yep.
How do you overcome that to make sure that your unit is running efficiently?
So we have a filter. It's not very high tech, but it's pretty much the only consumable part that we have to worry about. So we just have a filter that normally will last for the life of the unit, 10 years, no problems. But if we are in a very dusty environment, then the air filter may need to be cleaned, or even if it needs replacing, it's a very simple process to replace the filter. So that takes care of any dust. So yeah, it's really not a problem for us. I've seen some pretty dusty telecom sites, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, not a problem for our unit. It's been designed with a lot of local input and a good understanding of Indian conditions. So whether you're looking at humidity, temperature, dust, or any other factors, we've taken that all into account.
Which automatically answers the question of maintenance costs, which means they're very low.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, I'd just like to point out to the audience, if you have any questions, please put your hand up and I'll bring the mic to you. Please use this forum to have any of your questions, queries, concerns answered, because we're talking about a very special topic here. But for now, I'll continue on, actually, in asking, you chose India specifically. What was the reason behind it, and what are the plans?
Sure. So I can't take too much credit for that because I haven't been with the company at the point in time in which we chose India. But India is a great place for us to be for a number of reasons. The power grid in India, unfortunately, isn't as reliable as what we're accustomed to in the West. And so a typical cell phone site, for example, a cell phone tower, can easily have 8 hours a day or much more with no grid, and it's intermittent, so you can't predict when the grid is going to drop out. It drops out, and that links to what the current solution for that is, which really is the diesel generator, which brings with it a lot of quite ugly problems, ranging from the maintenance costs, pilferage, people steal diesel, and that links to the sort of underground black economy and organised crime indirectly. So we're keen to be part of that solution, to provide power currently where there is not power, or there's very unreliable power, and do away with a lot of the headaches around diesel. The solution at the moment, the predominant solution in India for telecoms is diesel, but we're eating away at that, and reducing the 2 billion litres a year of diesel that are used in Indian telecoms.
And in terms of entering into India, did you go into a partnership with any particular company, and did they help remove any barriers to entry? So
we formed a subsidiary maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and as I mentioned, that subsidiary has grown to about 50 employees now, and we've grown that on a basis of knowledge about the telecom sector, knowledge of the fuel cell economy, links with government. So that's really helped us get to a place where we can achieve this rollout of fuel cells, because there are, obviously without a subsidiary like that, without that route to market and route to regulations, route to government, it would really be quite difficult. It would not be an easy place to go, to run from the UK. An outfit that would sort of simply ship fuel cells to India, that just would not work. So our subsidiary for us has been the key vehicle, which has formed partnerships with all the parts of the ecosystem, supply chain, hydrogen suppliers, etc., and it helps us get off the ground.
And you mentioned diesel earlier,
yes.
So obviously the fuel cell uses hydrogen.
Yes.
Where does this hydrogen come from? Where is it sourced from?
Sure. So I guess in what I call the early days of fuel cell rollout, when you're looking at volumes of hundreds of units around India, there is enough capacity, enough hydrogen capacity from industrial facilities such as chlor-alkali plants and from oil refineries. So currently, at both of those industrial sources, hydrogen is produced as a byproduct of that operation. Now, that doesn't mean it's free. Maybe in the old days it would have just been flared to the atmosphere and But these days, where it's used for local heating, so it has a very low value. The value of it is equivalent to residual fuel oil or something like that. So that means to seed the market, we have access to this source of hydrogen that's actually quite low cost. Now, obviously, as fuel cells are rolled out more significantly in India, you need additional sources of hydrogen. So you have technologies like methane reformation, gasification of coal, but my favourites, which are the clean ones, in terms of the electrolysis of large volumes of renewables.
So you're essentially delivering a double whammy. You're going clean energy and you're utilizing waste and making it even cleaner.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Where are the plants located? Is it rural? Is it urban? Is there a specific area you're focusing on?
So we tend to be rural. So our first unit of the current generation of units, our commercial unit, went to India in December to a very rural site. We took some great photographs that had goats and things wandering around the telecom site, and that's often how it is in the rural parts. It's very different to the urban parts of India. And rural is where we're focusing predominantly because the grid is the weakest in the rural parts. The power outages are the longest, and diesel is causing the biggest headache in the rural parts. But over time, we will be rolling out our technology. It's applicable to urban as well, but rural is the priority at the moment.
So you're giving an area in India that does not have power, but in the future you're also going to be providing them with clean water.
That's what we want to do with Hydro, our partners, yes.
Let's talk a little bit about cost, because in terms of infrastructure, there's obviously challenges when you're going out into rural India. What does a establishment cost at the moment, and what are the savings, long-term savings that people will see?
Sure. So the cheapest power source in India will always be grid-based electricity. But the problem is that it is such an immense challenge to build the right sort of grid that can cope with the sheer growing demand in India, and it will be a long time before the grid is anywhere comparable to what we would be used to here. So the cost of a diesel solution actually ends up being really expensive. It's many multiples of the grid cost, because you have to take into account that something like 30% of the diesel is stolen locally from telecoms towers and from other applications that use diesel fuel. And the maintenance it can be quite horrendous for a diesel generator. The full cost of the maintenance, actually sending somebody out to repair the unit, and of course there's the cost of downtime. If the unit's not running, then in the case of telecoms, the operator loses a load of money. So diesel is pretty expensive on a through life basis, and on a through life basis, our hydrogen solution, it will cost more capital. It's more technically advanced than a diesel generator, but over the life of a contract, typically 10 years, we can save at a typical site something like 30% per kilowatt hour of backup power.
That's phenomenal. So in terms of rollouts, what are your rollout plans for India?
So we're at the stage now, quite an early stage in the rollout. We've got the one unit that we've sort of locked down in terms of its characteristics. We also had an earlier prototype unit in India that I neglected to mention earlier, back in 2011, so a few years ago. So we've actually improved on that, and we've demonstrated this unit at the end of last year. We will be rolling out during this year many versions of that unit, and really ramping up in the next 2 or 3 years to volumes that will be pretty significant. And to give you some more indication of numbers there, our subsidiary Essential Energy has over 10,000 tower sites currently under contract, so they provide energy management services to a very large number, which is growing, and that number will grow very significantly this year. And all of those sites, fuel cell is one of the options that could be used in the early days, where it's the most cost effective, in relation to hydrogen supply, etc. But as the hydrogen logistics are firmed up, that rollout can really take off. And beyond India, when we reach volumes, there are other parts of the world where that particular business model, the OPEX model for backup power can be replicated to other parts of the developing world. But there is also a business model around economies that have more reliable power grids. So in terms of emergency power, which might only operate in a hurricane or an earthquake or something like that. But that's a different business model with some different drivers, but it's another example of markets that we can target with our technology.
Okay. And I know we're almost out of time, so if there's any questions before I finish up, please put your hand up. Otherwise, I'll keep quizzing Aaron because I like talking to him
Sure,
about
no
development in India. So I have two final questions for you, and I'll make them quick because we know we've got people waiting. First one is, there's always an inherent challenge when you're going into a country that's not used to the technology. So in terms of, making them understand the value of fuel cells and alternative energy, did you have those challenges, and did you do anything to overcome them?
Yep, so we're certainly involved in outreach, and that's really important, and especially in the rural parts. So at Essential Energy, we do have a stream of activity in sort of education and promotion of a fuel cell, explaining to people exactly what it is and how it works. But combined with that, what is really powerful is the provision of water as well, because that's a basic need that goes beyond fear of a technology. And so our partnership there to produce water really helps us out with the outreach. One area that we've been looking at as well is ways of supplementing local incomes as well. So when you look at technologies like biomass, you can engage people to become involved in that and earn an income and take away the reliance on pilferage of diesel and things like that.
Okay, and very quickly, future plans other than taking over the world?
So I think I've given quite a lot of information on future plans. One area I didn't mention, I guess, in all that is the evaporatively cooled technology. So I mentioned earlier we've got some really big power packs for motive power, which are on display. That's an interesting option. We have that technology. We could look at larger scale power, as well as backup power and emergency power provision.
Excellent. Well, if you want a solution for a developing country that gives you clean energy, reliable energy, water as the only terrible byproduct, I would definitely recommend going up to stand B73 and speaking to Intelligent Energy. But Mr. Stevens, thank you so much for spending time talking to us, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And coming up is a chat about fuel cell power packs for the industrial truck applications. So stay tuned. We'll be back in about a minute.